really good position to be in, so.
I don't know that I have anything to
Yeah,
add.
no, they covered it all for sure.
Yeah. Well, to ask maybe Lauren and Megan specifically about your experience coming from a law firm and now sort of working just for one company and going in-house, I'd be very curious about your experience maybe with technology from, you know, A to B, and how, like maybe even like what the differences are and why you made the decision to go in-house.
Sure, yeah, I think, just to be honest, like law firm life is tough. It's a grind, and I think at some point, most people I know burn out on that, just to be quite honest. And there's a point in your career that you have to make a decision that, do I want this to be my business? Do I want the partners at this law firm to be my business partners and not my boss? Do I want to buy into that in this life? And when it came to that time for me, I decided that wasn't what I wanted, that I actually wanted to have a life and friends and things. So, and I mean, I was in a very particular, I was doing consumer class actions and flying all over the country. I was traveling every single week for the cases that I was litigating, and so that's kind of a particular circumstance, but I don't think that feeling and that experience is unusual at all. And particularly if you're a woman, I've seen many women who decide, I want to have a family and I can't do both, at least right now. And I think it's a little bit of a tangent, but you know, I think that you can't have it all at the same time. And I think one of the ways to manage that is to think about your life kind of in phases. Okay, now I'm going to focus on my career, now I'm going to focus on something else. That doesn't mean you can't come back and focus on your career again at a later point, but you have to weigh all of those things. So I think that most of the decision of moving in-house was just thinking about, okay, what do I want this phase of my life to be focused on? And being in the house is definitely more flexible. It's more conducive to other things going on in your life, and that's ultimately what I wanted for this phase of my life.
Yeah, it was definitely a lifestyle choice, moving from the law firm to in-house. I thought I was giving up my career to take a job, and that has been, nothing could be further from the truth. My lifestyle is better because when something comes on Friday night, I get to call the robots and tell them to work on it, or ask them to work on it, I guess, which is awesome. But I find it super, it's been crazy intellectual and interesting, I think. I only have one client. I have gotten to know, I didn't know what Wi-Fi went or any of these standards. I didn't know what a standard was, which you may not know. I'll tell you what a standard is. Like, the electronics are standardized. The fact that your plug, the plug on the end of your electronic device fits into every outlet that you go to in the US, that's because someone standardized it way back when. That light bulbs are the same and fit into your lamp. Somebody standardized it way back when. That your Wi-Fi chip connects to the internet that's going on. Somebody got together, and it's all the big companies that produce Wi-Fi chips and decided this is how they're going to work so that they all work together. So there's a whole body of law around that, which I knew nothing about when I came to Dell. But obviously at a big tech company, you start to learn about those things because that's really important to us and important to the tech industry generally. And I actually find it fascinating because I just understanding that happened, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So going to work at a big tech company, I've learned a lot more about storage and computers and all the things that we sell. So that's been super interesting. What is also interesting for me is having a single client. So we have general goals for us because I'm not divided between different clients. What is intellectual is that I am, part of my job is trying to move the law in ways that are helpful to Dell, which I didn't think through before I went in-house. But when you get to litigate cases with the whole eye toward what's best for the company, I start to look for specific places to get a good opinion from a judge in a way that would be helpful to all of our cases. We file amicus briefs at the Supreme Court on cases that are of interest to us. Well, that's, I think, super intellectual and super interesting. We have lobbying groups going to Congress on issues that are important to us, and that's stuff that my group heads up and looks into, and, so it's both understanding the law, understanding what our products are. I have found it crazy interesting. I remember my first day, or my first week maybe, somehow, I guess it was on LinkedIn, I'm not sure how this person got my number, but they called and told me about it was from the DOJ, these two big companies are merging, what did Dell think about this? And I thought, you're asking me? I was like, that's a great question, let me get back to you. I had no idea, but there's so many interesting things that happen that I have grown as a lawyer immensely since being in the shop. So it's been great.
That is great. And I mean, getting to learn about each of those things and really focus on what you're interested in is why technology is so cool. But I was talking to Beth a little bit about this before, and she was telling this really neat story of some of the cases that she's had to work on in the AG's office. But I'd love to ask each of you guys just maybe one story or case or day when it was such a cool story of maybe a technology thing that you advised on, or some policy. Yeah, you can take your time. I know Beth has got one, which is why.
Okay, I guess I'll start then, since it's been teed up. All right, so in May 2016, I settled I was first chair on this case, so I'm proud of it. I did settle with PayPal for their Venmo app. I had actually identified the case through talking to my younger brother, who pulled up this app and was telling me about it, and I had no idea what it was. I had never heard of it before, but he was in college at the time, and so he knew. So I went back to work and thought more about this app and some of the concerns that I had, and I looked up more about it online, and it turned out some of those concerns were valid. And so we negotiated a settlement. We believed there were misrepresentations regarding their security features, and also some failures to disclose regarding both their security features and their privacy features as well. They agreed to make several changes to their app as a result of our settlement, including they make sure to disclose better what security options that they have. They are more clearly disclosing the audience setting on the app, and so who you're actually sharing your transactions with, making it more clear when your transaction is actually final. Those are just some examples of what was included in our settlement, along with the payment to the state that we received. So that was, it's been a little while now, I guess, and it's been 2.5 years, but that's probably the biggest thing I've settled yet so far.
I'll say the first thing that came to mind for me is because it's happening today. When I started Dell in 2011, we had just been sued by a company called Ericsson. They sued us for patent infringement on 9 patents. It's not as big a company as it used to be, but it's a pretty big company. It was a pretty big lawsuit for us. It was my first jury trial. We took it to trial. It was my first jury trial since I've been at Dell. Very long story short, the case, through multiple appeals and very many legal proceedings, we have had a full win. We have completely won the case, but today is the last day for them to file cert at the Supreme Court to make their last appeal, and we don't think that they have filed it. So it is very exciting. This case that I've had since 2011 is about to close with a complete victory, and it's pretty cool to see a case go from the very beginning all the way to potentially filing a Supreme Court cert. But yeah, it's gonna be a good day.
For me, I can go next. For me, it's, and keep in mind what I've already told you about myself: accountant, French major, know nothing about technology. but one thing that sticks out in my career about, you know, being a technology litigator that just made me thrilled was, I'm gonna sound like a crazy nerd, but one of our clients is based in the UK. I fly over there a lot talking about, you know, the schedule of a big nothing they said is incorrect. But, and they had just gotten sued in the US, and so I flew over for maybe a week and a half to meet with them, talk to them about strategy, also do the e-discovery portions of figuring out what evidence we needed. And I was talking to their, basically their VP of research about some aspects of the technology, and he looks at me, he goes, I'm not gonna try his British accent, but he said, Misha, would you like to see the lab? And I was like, oh, yes. So I got to wear a white coat, and it was more so this is a company that makes a device that's about the size of a USB that sequences DNA. So it is crazy awesome to me what they can do. It is so tiny. And the excitement that he felt about showing me, and I mean, he was a great teacher, talking about asking questions about how this technology worked, how it's made, how the chips are assembled. And for me, the challenge of I need to understand what a nanopore is from a biological standpoint. There are chemical reactions going on in the device. There's the mechanical part, and then there's the code that actually makes the device run, which is so incredibly exciting. So to have really smart people, and I think that's a benefit of being a lawyer and being a curious lawyer, is you meet really smart people, whether they're your experts, they're your client, they're your colleagues, who can teach you something that you didn't know before, and that's kind of leading to a career of always learning, which I just absolutely love. So that was my exciting part, was putting on a white lab coat and going in their top secret lab and watching people sequence DNA and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so my role right now, I'm at a privately held company, so I can't really talk about the deals that we do. The terms of those are confidential, but in my previous life as a consumer class action attorney, I did some technology, data breach, that type of litigation as well, was involved in the Target data breach litigation, which was obviously a big one. But I think one of the most fun ones for me was kind of a personal vendetta that I got to fulfill against a company called SoFi, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of because they refinance student loans, or at least you will be hearing from them as soon as you graduate. But they, on their website, I was looking to refinance my own student loans, and on their website, they did not disclose that they do a hard credit pull. And I got dinged with that and said, oh no you didn't. So I ended up bringing a class action against them, which we settled, and they changed that practice. So,
You know, let a JD kid.
Well, that is really cool.
Well, so thank you guys so much. We have about 5 minutes left. I know people probably have to run to class, but if you guys have any questions for them, now would be the time to throw them up.
So because this is the Woman in Technology Law panel, I'm curious whether because of, I love that you don't have technical backgrounds, but I'm curious whether because of the lack of technical background or because you're not meeting what is stereotypically a technology lawyer, that if you've ever received pushback and how you've dealt with that.
I think, I think you get that no matter what kind of lawyer you're gonna be as a woman. I could tell lots of stories about times where people thought that I was the secretary or paralegal and not the attorney, and how I use that to my advantage. But, just the other day I was on a contract negotiation call where the other attorney was like mansplaining contracts to me, and I think that, depending on where you are in your career, whether you have the confidence to stand up for yourself or what the situation is. But in that situation, I said, you know what? I know what a contract is, and I don't appreciate how you're talking to me. And he was like, oh, well, and then I heard them, I could tell they went on mute and then, on their end, and then he came back and was like, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have talked to you like that. And I was like, yeah, that's right. But I think you're always gonna face that no matter what field you're in. In technology, sometimes it might be a little starker of a difference just because it is still a male-dominated field. But I also agree that working in-house, I've experienced less of that than I ever did in a law firm. There was a time when I walked into a document review at another law firm and was sitting there while the attorneys for the other side were talking about their strategy for the case. And I was like, why are they talking about this in front of me? And then I realized that they thought that I was a assistant or paralegal at their own law firm. And they didn't know. And so I sat there, I was just taking notes the whole time, taking notes. And then finally they're like, who are you? And I said, oh, I'm Megan Yell. I represent the plaintiff in this case. And they got so angry and said, why didn't you tell us? And I was like, why did you assume I wasn't an attorney? And they're like, we're gonna bring a motion. And I was like, oh yeah, our female judge is going to love that. I can't wait for that hearing. Of course, they never brought a motion. But I think those things are gonna happen and you just have to use it to your advantage and roll with it.
So was your question more like, have you had pushback because we're women?